Welcome everyone to another episode of the Future of Biztech. I'm your host, JC Granger, and I have another fantastic guest with us today. And if you end up loving this episode, again, please show your love and appreciation by following the podcast wherever you're listening, and be sure to give it a 5-star review, preferably with some nice comments, of course, because that is how techies like you and I find cool podcasts like this. And today I have the absolute pleasure of interviewing Bruce Dahlgren, the CEO of MetricStream. Bruce, tell us a little bit about MetricStream. What do you guys do, and who do you help out?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, JC. It's certainly an exciting time. Even with all the challenges out there, I can tell you that things are moving forward, and we're excited, MetricStream, what we're working on. So take a step back. Basically, we are risk management software. And traditionally, the past, risk has always been something in the shadows. Things people hope never showed up, and if it did, you panicked and you addressed it. Yeah. Our belief is that risk should be at the forefront. It can be strategic. And if you prepare for it and you have the data and the reports and the capabilities, then you can make it strategic. So our tagline at MetricStream is thrive on risk. And we actually believe that leading into this and understanding risk can help your business.
Well, that's awesome. So then what kind of industries typically are like your clients now? I mean, are you in like financial district? Is it like high regulation areas or like vulnerability areas, like legal and government, things like that? Like who's really the best fit for you guys across the board?
Sure. Well, if you look at the issues in the past, you look over the last couple of decades, those things that really showed up, like the Enron issue or the subprime loan crash, for example, cyber attack, a lot of that was in the financial services sector. So a big part of our marquee customers are clearly banks in the financial services area. However, with this pandemic, everything has changed. Every company, now a lot regulated industries, but every company, every industry, every region around the world is dealing with the risk. And what do I mean by that? Well, think of it. It is a perfect storm, from health issues to economic challenges. Think about work from home now and all of the cyber aspects, and then throw in on top of that now environmental concerns and social concerns. It's like the perfect storm for risk. And guess what? It's a good time for MetricStream because we can help customers navigate those choppy waters.
Well, that's good. Well, let me ask you this then. What motivated you to start the company? I mean, were you, in some other sector and you guys got hacked, everything went down, everyone lost their job? You're like, this is crap. I need to fix this. I mean, just what was that moment where you said, I need to start a risk management software company?
Well, actually, I'm the recipient of the company as it had begun. So
that's
this
right. Okay.
was a while ago. Gunjan Sinha, Gaurav Kapoor, several of those came up with the concept. And in the industry, the acronym is GRC. It stands for governance, risk, and compliance.
Okay.
But it's matured. So every one of these issues, as these things have come up, the industry has matured. I've actually been the CEO at MetricStream for 15 months. But I'm really proud to be the recipient of all of this great heritage. And what we've done over the last 15 months is build out the sales team, build out our technology, add to the whole process of what we do in the industry, and build out our customer base. So it's really an exciting time, but it's not new. The industry started a couple decades ago, actually.
Okay. And then, what drew you to MetricStream in particular? I mean, obviously, if you're the CEO there, you had a lot of options with your experience. You could have gone to a lot of companies. What made you say, all right, that's where I want to land. That's the company that I want to go take to that next generation?
For sure. What a great question. We all look at this and we all manage our careers, and everything about this were the right ingredients, in my opinion. So you have a wonderful heritage. There's a halo around MetricStream being the innovator of this market, this integrated risk management software world. But on top of that, great talent, marquee customers, great innovation. So you had this great foundation. And then you add into it with the pandemic and all of these other changes, literally the risk world is changing, right? Mm-hmm. It's not anymore where you show up with red, yellow, green. And green, you just don't look at. Yellow, you kind of hope, maybe it'll go away. And red, I better worry. Yeah. And today we quantify risk. And by the way, some of the issues that are green could be your biggest impact for managing the risk and making it strategic. Now, I'm not saying you don't address red, but think about where we've taken this now. We literally quantify risk. And part of it is the reporting, But a big part of it is the artificial intelligence. And how do you actually start taking this data and turn it into a strategic advantage?
Well, you said something that caught my attention here for a second. You had said that risk management is changing, and I have a question, and whether you guys do this or not, or maybe it's something you guys are looking at. When the risk management software, I imagine it works well with a lot of numbers and things like that, right? So that's why the financial industry is a big thing for that. But what about culture? What about like PR crisis, so to speak? So, for example, you guys enter a certain industry or work with a certain figure or company. Is there any way for your system, either now or maybe in the future, to go to see like what kind of risk there would be for any kind of cancel culture, for example, right? I mean, right now, which side you land on, if you like cancel culture or think it's bad, it isn't really the point, as much as that consumers are holding companies accountable for better or worse. And so that could be a huge risk. You guys partner with the wrong company, so to speak, or say the wrong thing on social media, or the CEO or the C-level, somebody gets in some scandal. Is there anything about your system now or in the future that you plan to start talking about the risk management when it comes to community and culture and social media?
It's a great, very insightful question. Let's think of it this way. Every one of these companies, big, small, medium size, different regions, whatever industry you're in, you have a ton of data. You have a lot of this information, but it's used in different ways, operational ways. If you think of the early workflow process improvements, if you think about some of the network capabilities or customer intimacy, they collected this data. But nobody has ever really taken that data and said, let's use it to help us manage risk. Why couldn't we bring this together, both internal and external? Think of the risk issues around cyber attacks. So much of this comes through third parties. But guess what? All that data exists. What we do is we pull all that data, structured data, unstructured data, pull it together, and then put it in a usable form with an effective user interface, so I can start now understanding this. What if we do this? Let me comment about your culture. I couldn't agree with you more, JC. I think it's a wonderful insight. I've been around the industry a long time, as I mentioned, right? So in the past, a lot of the new technology drove culture. We got a smartphone and that helped us communicate, or we got an iPod and we digitized music, and all these different things. It's cool, right? Today, I believe culture is starting to drive technology. And this is a really fundamental change. Let me give you an example. I had a flight last night and I was looking at my itinerary. Do you know on the itinerary, it lists the carbon emissions?
I didn't know that.
Print. Yeah, really? Small print. But just think of the impact now of people starting to choose an airline or an actual flight based on carbon emissions.
It's like calories on the fast food menus now, right?
It is. How many times do we go and buy potato chips and you look at the back and then you put them away?
Oh, crap.
I really believe that now what's happening, and in the industry, it's called ESG, and it's environmental, social, and governance. To us, we connect that with the government governance process, GRC. I mentioned this earlier. And what's happening now is all of a sudden, this thing around global warming, social diversity impacts are now showing up in risk as well. Investors now will look for an ESG score to decide if they want to invest in that company. This is amazing impact that now, so what are our customers asking? They're saying, okay, first, I now have to worry about the compliance regulations coming out more every week. These governments coming out of this post-pandemic. How am I addressing that? Am I able to report? Can I be compliant? So our software pulls all of these data elements to give them that compliance, to help them with the audit, to work through those requirements. But that's just the first step. What we do is we go into what we call MetricStream intelligence, and it's our form of AI. And think of it this way, we literally can take that data and we can combine it from all of these different data sources and start being able to give them some predictability. What will happen in this risk space? And what if I do this? And think of all these companies out there that are wondering about a new marketplace or a new product line, or should I address this? Or what about my diversity? Well, we can not only help them with the reporting, but we can start helping them with understanding where this goes. And what things could they do to make risk strategic? So let me say it again, thrive on risk. That's MetricStream.
I like it. Well, let me ask you a question then. So You said you've come into this company here in the last year and a half or so. I'm a marketing guy by trade, so I always want to know, like, how are you getting the word out? What does your company do to let other companies know that you even exist?
Sure.
Right. I mean, some of the listeners like to hear about different marketing strategies that might be working for different industries. Are you guys doing paid ads? Are you just doing trade shows? Well, maybe now, because last year and a half you couldn't, right? Obviously you're on a podcast, so that helps, right? And I'm sure you do more of these. But what are the strategies you guys are using to allow companies to even know that you guys exist and are out there?
Sure. Well, I think in the past, if you look at risk previous to now and the pandemic and all that, there were specific risk officers, and they would go to seminars, let's say, or they would participate in new technology, and it was kind of isolated. Today, all business executives are interested in risk. They're all trying to figure out, if I launch this product or if I do this, what's the impact to my business, right? And how do I manage this? So we do a lot of direct contact. We obviously feel very good about our marketing. And by the way, we've completely rebranded MetricStream over the last 6 months, and aquamarine color and a new, fresh, lively, exciting part to MetricStream. But we also now are doing a lot of summits, and we're doing a lot of business events. In fact, we have one coming up in London in just 2 weeks, the middle of October. And it's called GRC Summit, obviously, by MetricStream. And here's a chance for business executives and risk executives to come together and share stories and learn. And we do a lot of insight to share with them the new tools and techniques and MetricStream intelligence and things now that are available for them. It's very effective. It's great. I'm proud of our sales and marketing team.
That's good. I mean, if you have that's one of the hardest things to build out, is a good sales and marketing team. Everything part about a business is hard, but that seems to be the hardest one that
and think of it this way too. We think of sales as fear or greed, and what motivates people. Risk isn't necessarily the kind of thing that people raise their hand and say, I've got risk concerns, come see me.
Well, unless it happens, usually, we're a fix it, not prevent it kind of cold society, but a lot of things have happened, and it's got, some people going, oh crap, maybe I should look at that now,
Let me give you an example around cybersecurity issues, right? So it's not an if versus, it's a when now, right? We all know whether it's hacking or ransomware, all these things are going to happen. I want to be clear, our software doesn't go and protect their enterprise. We're not a ransomware software. But what we do is we're able to pull the data together, use the algorithms to give them a sense of what risk they have and what would the cost be to that. And how do I quantify the impacts of some of these IT cyber attacks on their company? And this now becomes, think of it as a forecast or an understanding in advance of how, as a business, do I want to protect myself, and what do I know the risk could be? Mm-hmm. And so it's really exciting. The ESG that I mentioned is another great example, right? So companies now are starting to be ranked on their their carbon footprint, on their diversity scores. And they're sitting back saying, where do I get this data? Well, the reality is they have it. They have it in their HR systems.
Yeah, it's all there.
In their ERP systems. They have all this stuff. So we are able to pull that together. We help them do the reporting. And now from that point, then we start bringing to them the ability to start doing what if scenarios. How can I get ahead of it?
And also tell them, what's worth putting money at now versus later too, right? Things that are immediate, you're gonna have to address right now. Things that are low risk, it's like, okay, well, start getting on this soon kind of thing. And that helps them with their budget. So I can see a huge advantage to having
no question. Yeah. And I think the European Union, I think the European basically climate is a little ahead of this and some of the regulation aspects. But one of the things that MetricStream also provides in this ESG area is understanding those indexes. What content is going to be required? What are those regulations and those compliant aspects? So if you think about it, a business leader is sitting back saying, I'm running my business. I've got all of these things. I'm worried about the risk aspect, and I don't even know what's coming next. Mm-hmm. And so MetricStream, on top of bringing the software and the analytics and all of that to them, we also are the ones that can connect this whole ecosystem. So we know where the content providers are. We know what those scores are going to be and what are the requirements. And we can help them understand how to navigate through this.
So what's the future look like? I would be remiss if I didn't ask the golden question of the future of BizTech, which is a two-part question. First, I want to ask about your company because my audience does like to get the inside scoop. So I know you
Sure.
had a launch. I know you had that GRC launch recently, but what's on the roadmap? What new cool things are you guys working on? What's in the skunk works,
Sure.
basically, of the company that will be coming down the road here that you really plan on, hitting hard? Well, what's coming down the
Yeah.
pipeline?
Well, let me take a step back and just brag about MetricStream real quick, and then I'll tell you about the future. But basically, the way we think of this is our platform is the foundation, and on that platform is a federated data model, and that is able to bring in all these data elements to make sense. And we have low-code capabilities, all right, all of the user interface, all of these aspects, the user experience. Then on top of this platform and our federated data model are 6 product lines. Right. And these are all of the things that the businesses need to worry about, from risk, compliant, audit, third party, cyber, and now ESG.
Yeah.
But here's the cool thing about MetricStream is they all can work together.
Mhm.
So if I'm an audit customer for MetricStream and I want to add compliance or our risk product, I'm using the same data model, the same data elements, and now I can pull it together. So all of a sudden, if I'm going out and I've now have to do reporting and scoring for environmental, our carbon footprint, I don't have to have that be a one-off point solution and I got to bring this in separate and it doesn't integrate with anything else. It fits together with all of our product lines on that same platform. So what's important? Well, just think about it. One is we're going to continue to advance and modernize that platform. New user experiences, ways for our user group and our customers to benefit from this capability. But then we will also continue to build out the product lines. So as new requirements come in, as new risk elements come in, it's very easy for us to go and build those products on that platform. But I would tell you, if you want my personal opinion, as maybe more nearer term than longer term, I think the whole aspect of risk quantification is the big advancement. And what I mean by that is just like I was saying earlier, the red, yellow, green. We tend to sit back and say, well, I'm in compliance. Okay, that's good. That's good. You accomplished that.
But how close are you to? They're
Yeah,
going past fail. They're
and
going
what
past fail.
happens, right? Like if I'm not, is this like
Yeah.
in the millions?
But
or
how
is this
close
in
are
the
you to fail?
correct? Is this the
Yeah.
billions? It's a little bit like having your blood work done. Okay, I'm in a good zone, but oops, this could be a bad thing.
Well, yeah, but
And I
can't
think
say your blood pressure isn't critically low just because you haven't passed out yet. You could be 2 seconds from that, and it's like you need to do something about it.
see, you and I, we've covered everything from calories to heart attacks.
Oh yeah,
But,
right. There's a huge
listen,
parallel.
unfortunately we specialize in risk, and risk is a reality. It's a reality, and maybe even more now in the pandemic. But we believe risk can be strategic if you can get out ahead of it, and they have the information. We just need to have it in a usable manner, in a way that they can capitalize on that. And then through our MetricStream intelligence, we can start predicting and helping them be able to get out ahead of it. It's really a cool thing.
So it sounds like you have a lot in that near future. You have things working better together, some AI stuff here in quantification that can help with it. So that's really cool. So now let's talk about the industry. I mean, risk management, you're not alone in it, of course, right? There's a big industry out there. Where do you see the industry itself, you and all your competitors, in that next 10 years? Like where do you see the major shifts of
Yeah.
either technology or what's happening in the world that's going to force people to try to go more risk management? Or maybe do you see things getting better because of it, and maybe people start, unfortunately, they back off, right? Because we're very reactive of a species. So where do you see that next 10 years for all of risk management going?
Yes, it's a great question. I would tell you the amount of investment interest in this segment of the industry, this GRC, this governance, risk, and compliance, it's intense. People want to invest in this because they realize the impact. And what I would tell you from a company standpoint, I think there will be a lot of consolidation in the industry. And this happens as it matures. I mean, let's go back to ERP systems with workflow. Think of the way that whole segment consolidated and advanced. And then the CRM, the customer intimacy aspect, and how the same thing will happen in this GRC and ESG area. And what we'll see is consolidation. What's the advantage to MetricStream? The solid platform foundation and one single federated data model. So it's very easy for us to pull those advancements into a common place versus the point solutions. Right? You understand? Because every point solution has to do what? The CIO's got to standard and justify it, and you got to bring it in and test it and all this stuff. Once you're in on this platform, going from compliance to audit or adding third party, these all become a natural expansion for that customer. And it all comes back to using the same data model, coming back to using the same data elements, and then starting to expand. So the whole aspect of unstructured data now, external, let me give you a specific example. In IT cyber, right? The majority of these hacks, the majority of this ransomware actually comes through seams when you build in third parties, right? So a third party gets evaluated and scored and accepted, and now they're in. But how many companies go back and really manage that third party? And so what you see is a lot of these hacks, it's terrible stuff. They come in through third and fourth party relationships. Look at the complexity of the supply chain now in this pandemic world and all of the changes that are happening. Every one of them creates seams through third parties. Well, wouldn't it be great to have a solution like MetricStream that helps you manage those third parties to really understand that?
Now that's a big part right there, because most people can't. They can control what they can control, which is themselves.
Correct.
But have a platform that can also keep checks and balances on your providers. Now,
Correct.
that I think is one of the biggest things that you guys do. It sounds like from a scalable standpoint, and how important that would be. Do you guys work with government entities at all, or is it mostly just?
For sure. In fact, a lot of the government entities now are also in a private world with new content providers and content scoring around environmental, social. For sure, that's our strength, is that ecosystem. JC, I'll give you another example of some new technology, because I know your listeners like to hear this. I would tell you it's the link of mobility into risk. And why do I say that? Well, think of where the majority of real risk takes place. It takes place at the front line, whether it's a teller in a bank, and it could be a mobile application, whether it's a shipper receiver on a dock in a supply chain. I mean, you could go on and on. A receptionist in an office building, right? When they see a risk, how do they get that into the system? How do they notify? And so the real advancements now are around this mobility and frontline detection of risk, and being able real time to say, I see something that's of concern and it needs to be flagged and visible. And how you bring that real time data and analytics into the system. So we're working on this. We've got some really cool things happening, and I think there's a big future there as well.
I love that. And then, like I said, I like that second level of checks and balances. And I think that's probably a really key part of what you guys do. And I think that's really, from my opinion anyway, that I think that's one of the leading factors of probably why people would hire, a company like yours. Let me ask you a personal question here, more like business personal. So if you could pick one business book, because you seem like a really well-read guy, you know a lot of stuff. One business book that you had to recommend to anyone listening, that's like it's a must-read, period, whether it be for your industry or just in general, what would it be? Which book?
This is a little dated now, but I think it was very telling. It was Leading Digital, and there were some books early on about how the digital society was going to change the human race, and there were a lot of obvious things, right? Social media, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't think anybody predicted, right? So I've been around a long time. And I think back to, I worked at AT&T, NCR, HP, some great companies. A lot of this technology was kind of on the forefront and started to forecast where we would go, right? But nobody ever predicted something as dramatic as a pandemic. I mean, just think of video conferencing. Here we are doing this interview through video conferencing. I remember early days when we were at AT&T, we're talking about this, and people said, no one will ever want to do this. You might get caught in your pajamas, or the dog is barking. And think of today's world. We don't think
some people still don't want to. Some people still don't want to.
We don't think twice about a background noise, right? If we hadn't done those things, and this whole aspect of Leading Digital, if we hadn't put those things in place, think of what this world would have gone through the last 12, 18 months. Think of how we've been able to continue our lives in a relatively productive way because of technology. And I think it's really cool to be a part of that. Now,
And
I would also tell you,
what was the name of the book again, though? You said it was?
yeah, I believe it's Leading Digital. I can get you some more
Leading
information.
Digital. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll
And,
have to look that one up,
but-
especially if it's before, to see if they were able to predict this so well. Like, that's really interesting.
Correct. And it was basically a way to start scoring companies as to how they use digital, not just to gain, retain customers, but also internally, how you use the whole digital aspect to be a thought leader in this. I just think it's really exciting. And for me personally, to think of the years spent building these systems and data processing and networking and all of this now coming together in this post-pandemic world. And we have a program, a marketing campaign we call Power What's Next. Mm-hmm. And basically, now that you have all of this, how do you make risk strategic? How do you thrive on risk? And how does risk become commonplace to the way you manage your business? So before you launch a new product, before you change your supply chain, before you enter a new customer segment, are you really analyzing all that risk? Have you really put forth the assessment of where you stand? That's not just reporting. That's a big part of it. But how do you really make risk strategic? And I'm excited about what we're doing. I can tell you we're hiring. I would love to have more people come join us. We almost can't hire fast enough.
Well, let's talk about that. So as our last question, then how can people get in touch with you personally if they have if they're part of a company that has a big deal for you? And then how can people reach the company in general if they're just trying to inquire?
Yeah, so obviously you can catch us on the internet, MetricStream.com. That's the quickest way. I like to think our social media is really up to date. It'll be a quick way to see what opportunities we have. You can always reach out to me personally, Bruce@MetricStream.com. That's an easy way to get to us. But, I tell you, look for some of the things that we're doing. We're always on LinkedIn with new programs, new information. We have the summit, as I mentioned, coming up in middle October in London. And we would just love to have people come be a part of this. I'm not just saying this. We're literally hiring today, and we're looking for talent that want to be a part of this journey.
Well, hey, there's a lot of people looking for really good spots out there, and it sounds like you guys are a great company to work for. And listen, for everyone out there listening, again, if you liked what you heard today, please be sure to subscribe to this podcast, give it a 5-star rating, put in some cool notes on there for us so other techies like us can find it and enjoy learning about all the amazing and helpful B2B softwares on the market today. Bruce, thank you again so much for coming on the show. If I happen to be in London October, I think I'm being like December, so I might be a little late.
You have an open invitation from the CEO. JC, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I think your insight is terrific.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
Come see us.
Thanks, Bruce.
All right, cheers.